Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. We're just admitting everyone right now, so please give us a moment and just to make sure everyone has been able to join. Looking good so far, so yeah, just give us a few more seconds and we'll make a start. Okay, that's stabilized now. Okay, welcome everyone to this third and final webinar on the Mazda service plans. I say final, it's final for now. We're going to be doing more in the upcoming months as more things get released, but we'll take you through that shortly. But welcome to this launch webinar for the Mazda service plans. First and foremost, let me take you through a few things about the points of the agenda today, including a bit of housekeeping as well. So in terms of your hosts, you've got myself, Steve Yor from eDynamics, and you've got Matt Reed from Mazda. Matt will introduce himself as well. And we're going to go through a little bit about us, first and foremost, and then we're going to go into a program overview about what it is we're going to be covering. And then we're going to do the main bulk of this webinar will be the demonstration. That's going to take about 30 to 40 minutes to do the demo. And we'll finish off with an FAQ and potentially some Q&A as well. So we've tried to capture everything we've been asked over the last couple of webinars and put them into a Q&A list that we'll take you through at the end. But in terms of housekeeping, so the chat's disabled, voice and video is all disabled, so you can only hear me and Matt. Obviously, you're just going to see on screen what the slides and the demo. There is the Q&A function available, so you can ask questions by all means. I'd probably say refrain from asking them as we go, because I'm probably going to cover what you would have asked either during the demonstration or through the FAQ section towards the end. There will be an opportunity at the very end to ask questions then. If there's something burning you think you're going to forget, obviously, if you can't write it down, just by all means use the Q&A, but don't submit it till later until you know whether it still needs to be asked or not. Okay, so fantastic. So let's take us through the first part of this webinar, which is the program overview. So I'm going to hand over to Matt. He can just introduce himself and take you through what the program is all about.
Good morning, everyone. Some of you I know, but for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matthew Reed. I'm the Parts and Accessory Sales Manager and After Sales Marketing Manager for UK. I am, along with Steve, extremely excited to be able to announce that obviously as of tomorrow, 27th, we will go live with the new National Mazda Service Plan Program, of which we'll be partnering with eDynamics. Many of you will know from the previous program that we shared with Allianz that it was only available on new vehicles, and you could only purchase up to 12 months from the date of registration. So really quite restrictive in what we were able to do. The new plan with eDynamics is completely different and gives us way more flexibility, with obviously new vehicles and used vehicles, the ability to purchase the plan at any point within the service cycle or the age. So it gives you a lot more flexibility. MOTs are included in the plan as well, as I say, should you wish to do so. And early September, we'll be launching a maintenance element to the plan. So for example, if you were to have a customer that not only wants to do servicing and MOT, but include a small fund to cover things like wipers or contribution towards pads, discs, so forth, your sales and service teams have the ability to add those into the plans. So the whole thing is way more flexible than what we've seen before. National pricing, obviously, for customers, which of course gives us the ability to advertise on a much wider scale. So, that gives us much more voice and to support those customers coming into you guys and buying plans, which of course, obviously, is a huge feeder to service loyalty and service profitability. As you would expect, the plans will be available on a monthly paid or fully paid options. So giving that customer flexibility in that way, and customers can purchase and claim those from any of our UK dealer network. One of the areas which we've worked really hard on with eDynamics and they've got experience of is the dynamic refunds. So the reimbursement rates to the dealer network, so they're individual to you guys, but I won't steal Steve's thunder on that. As I say, I'll let him explain that as he goes through the presentation. To come is, even though at launch it will be you guys, the network, selling the plans, but then we will have a new customer purchasing portal as well. So at some point in the next sort of month or so, customers will be able to link through the Mazda website and buy their own service plan direct through the website, which is great news. And we will also be entering the new programs. So in other words, Exto, which is the back office system which you quote and manage the plans through, into portals. So it will become a what we call single sign-on. So rather than having to go through a individual web address, which it will be at launch, as I say, it will be in portal, and it will feed through into digital service record as well. So you'll be able to tell for when you put in a registration number whether a customer has got a Mazda service plan, much like we do with Allianz. We will be doing the same with eDynamics with the new provider. But without saying too much, as I say, I'll hand back over to Steve, who'll take you through the how-to and how it works. Thanks, Steve.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Matt. Okay, so let me just switch screens. I'm going to take you through in just a moment the live demonstration. So this will be essentially within our Exto portal, as Matt just said. Okay, so let me just come out of there, and we're going to go into Exto, and let me go from the absolute beginning. So we'll talk you through getting access if you've never used this before, how that's going to work, etc. So, excuse me. A lot of you have returned the onboarding forms already. I think the vast majority have to this point. Obviously, as Matt said, we're going live tomorrow. So anyone that hasn't, please get those in today. We'll get those processed as quickly as possible to get you access. Some of you may already have access to Excel. We'll come on to that in just a moment. But for those that haven't, those forms that you're returning, there is a tab on those forms for you to be able to put in users and list them out, their job role and what kind of access they need. Please, when you do that, make sure you fill out everyone across all departments, whether that be service, sales, contact center, whoever it might be. What that will then do is we'll generate you a welcome link. And the welcome link will gain you access to Excel. Will be a link into this portal. I will include the URL at the end of this, and also in the handout we're going to put on the Mazda portal as well. So there's lots of ways you'll be able to make sure you can get access to this. So once you've got access, you'll be given a username and password. Now, if you're already using Exto for another brand, in your own dealerships, for other modules, whatever it might be, we're going to just essentially upgrade your existing access. You're not going to have a separate login. You won't need multiple rounds of logins, etc. It will all be under the same one. So what we'll then do is we'll simply add in the ability to sell master plans through your existing login, and you'll log in the normal way. So regardless of how you would do that, essentially, you're going to log in using your username and password. If you haven't logged in for 7 days, or if you've changed location in terms of IP address, it's going to ask you to do a 2FA code, which will be emailed to you. Otherwise, you're going to come to the main page, like you see here. Now, when you get to the home page, you'll see there is actually a news board where you can see updates. All information is about recent updates is in here. So you can scroll around. As you can see, I'm clicking through the archive, and there's various ways to look back through updates if you need to do that. Other navigation parts, once you're in Exto, there is, most of you will only see these first two at the top. So the first one is utilities, and in here you've got things like reports, you've got dashboards for plans and subscriptions, and then in the support tab, you can in here raise a ticket, and also there is a full end-to-end guide on how to sell a subscription, or a service plan, and a subscription if required. You'll see there's things like the ability to create a quote, amend a quote, cancel, transfer, all the invoice, all the things I'm going to show you on this webinar are listed out here. And you can click through to any of those guides at any point. So don't feel you've got to write things down on this particular webinar. I am going to take you through lots of information, but it's all in these guides as well. Okay, so what I'm going to show you then is essentially how you find your way to the service plan area. Down the left-hand side, you will see your dealership or dealer group, depending on your level of access. You will then see all these different options in the left menu tree. Now, the first one is the search function. There's various search items in here which are available at your disposal. However, you then go into the service section. You'll see we've got the plans and subscriptions tab within service. It's also within CRM. So if you work in the contact center, for example, you can get to it through here. Or if you work in sales, you can get to it from here. Now, you may be using other modules already. This may be the very first time you've logged in, but it's the same for whichever one of those cases it is. And it doesn't matter which department you work in or access this through, you're going to get through the same module every time. So, for example, if you work in a contact center, clicking on plans will do the exact same thing as if you went through sales or service. So I'm going to go into plans. When you go into plans, it then expands a subtree within that particular menu item, and it will take you straight into what we call open quotes. Now, this isn't just the quotes themselves. This is also any that have been converted to a live, what we call confirmed plan. But you'll see provisional plans in here, which is essentially an unsold quote, confirmed plans, which is a confirmed or a sold quote, and then cancelled. And there's some other statuses you might see over time as well, such as pending and other things like that. You can also filter these down into just seeing provisional quotes, and you can see other things like confirmed, etc. There's also filters across the top where you can use those to search. So just a bit of information if I go back to the All tab. Now, with it being a national plan, these plans are all in the same place for everyone. So I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go. But what that essentially means is it doesn't matter where the plan's been sold from, whether it be a dealer, online, by Mazda themselves, or however other method we might make available. It just means that Mazda can see every single plan. And it means that you can always see the plans that you've created a quote for or sold. But you can also access a plan that any other dealers sold as well. And that's perfectly normal. We do this for and many other clients as well. And it's simply so that it becomes a national plan. The customer can purchase from one location or online and take their vehicle anywhere to have it serviced. So we'll come back to this open quote section in a little bit. What I want to do first and foremost, though, is I'm going to take you through making a quote, and you'll see the very next option down is a new quote. So for a lot of you with single site access, when you go into this page, this option will be locked to the dealership you have access to. If you have group access, clicking that will maybe show two or more locations within your group. It's very important that you select the right location as appropriate for the customer so that they are then associated with that retailer. And another really important reason to do that is for the incentive scheme, which we'll explain a little bit more about later. But that just means that we can attribute the incentive payment to the correct location. Once you've done that, we then have the ability to choose what the department that's selling the plan. Now, essentially, this is either going to be new or used sales or after sales. Those are the only three type of plans. If you work in a contact center, typically you would pick the one that's most appropriate to the customer if they've just bought the car or if it's an after sales plan. In this instance, I'm going to go with a new vehicle, and then I'm going to put in a vehicle registration. Now, there is an option to choose to search by VIN. There is also the option to use a manual lookup as well, which allows you to use various drop downs. So when you click find, that's going to go away and it's going to find that vehicle. Now I've chosen one that I've previously had a plan cancelled on, and also a quote that I've created on, just so you can see here if there's any history of other plan activity on a particular vehicle, that's going to show in this list. And it could be you need to pick up an existing quote by clicking on that there, or you might want to reinstate a plan, which I'll show you how to do later as well. For the purpose of this demonstration, though, I am going to continue on by clicking continue, and it's first then going to ask me for a mileage. So you need to put in the most, as accurate a mileage as you can. If the customer's not sure, please just look up service history or go out to the vehicle and just get the current mileage. Really important you do this because that's going to be on the contract, and it's also needed to calculate when the next services are all due. Obviously, if it's a new vehicle, you can put an arbitrary mileage in, 10 or less will be absolutely fine. So what then happens is we will go into the default parameters for calculating a service plan. So quick few pointers on this one. The vast majority of customers will go for a 3-year plan. Typically mirrors 3-year finance, but you can flex that down to as low as 1 year or up to 5 years, depending on the customer's requirements. We will default to an average 10,000 miles per year, but you can adjust that down or up, right the way up to quite an astronomical mileage of around 60,000 if the customer is doing that much. Most customers, however, are going to be on the default standard mileage of 10,000 miles. With this being a new vehicle, we've checked the age of the vehicle, we've checked the mileage that you've entered, and we've calculated that in the very next service that's due on a plan is going to be the one that's due at 12,500 miles or 1 year old. If you know that to be incorrect, as in you've just serviced it, and you know if the next one is actually a different service, you can correct that by adjusting the slider. However, in most cases, it's going to calculate it for you, and it should be accurate as to what's required. Likewise with the last service date, so typically the most common time to sell a plan is either at the point of selling a vehicle or when you're servicing the vehicle. So what usually happens is the last service date is now. Now obviously a PDI counts as a service, so that's why we are including that as now on a new vehicle. But what this will then do is it will allow for the system to calculate when the next service is due. So this has just been PDI, it's brand new now. The next service is going to be due in August next year. Now, you can actually flex that either way. So if it was serviced 2 months ago, for example, it will update the next service date to June. Likewise, if it's an older vehicle and you have an existing plan that has one more service included and you want to sell another one, but that next service isn't due for a few more months, you can actually you can future date the first service on the plan, let's say to October in this instance, and it will then move the servicing schedule. So the next service would be October 2026. So just those are the options available here. Like I say, you can flex this, tailor it to each individual customer's requirements. It's not a fixed offering. It's absolutely customizable to the customer. So I'm going to go with the standard off-the-shelf options here. It has picked up the MOT date as being due in March. I know I said this was a new vehicle, but let's just go with it and assume that it's brand new now. But like I say, it will calculate the next MOT date according to when that is actually required. Even if it's an older vehicle, it will pick up the correct MOT date from a DVSA accurately. So when you continue on, what's then going to happen is we're going to look at Mazda's menu pricing. We're going to get the servicing, as you can see here. So this vehicle is going to be needing 3 services in those 3 years because it's once every 10,000 miles or 12,500 on the schedule. But this is going to be annual servicing. And we're also including an MOT as well. Now, what you might also notice is the prices. So the prices are calculated using a national pricing matrix. So they're not relative to each individual dealership. We can't do that on a national plan. It has to be a national price for various reasons, but most importantly for transparency to the customer. And so that, if they're going to purchase this online, that they can then, doesn't matter where they're purchasing it from, it's always going to be the same price, essentially. What's important, though, is when we come to reimbursing dealers, such as yourselves, then that will be individual to yourselves. Now, I'm going to explain that in the FAQ a little bit later on, how we arrive at all these numbers. But for the time being, just appreciate that we've done a lot of homework on this. It's not our first time doing this, so we're well versed in how to approach this. So, adding up those 2 services and the MOT, what you'll notice then, we have a breakdown of payments. So, the payments vary over the course of the 3 years. Now, the first payment's always going to be a little bit higher because of what we call a facilitation fee, and I will explain that in just a little while. But then the rest of the payments kind of stabilise. You'll notice that they stay at £28 for 21 months, then they drop down to 25. And the reason for that is, if you look at the top here, the second service is actually a larger, it's almost 1.5 times the cost of the first service. So we need to make sure we collect enough funds for that second service to happen and make sure we're always going to be positive, because you cannot invoice a plan onto a negative basis. So with that in mind, what we'd have to do is make sure we always collect enough money in time for that service. Now, these payments will flex. They are dynamic. So if you've got a large first and third service, or you've got 5 services and it's a second and fourth, it's going to tailor itself to make sure that we always capture enough money for each service every time. But in total, we've got 34 payments in here. I'm doing this on the 26th of the month. Now, we collect money on the 1st. That's rigid. It cannot be changed. I'll explain a little bit again later when we get to the FAQ. But and if you set up a plan after the 21st of the month, that's too late for us to set up a direct debit for the 1st of the following month, which would be 5 days from now, on the 1st of September. So what we're going to have to do is then, as you'll notice, set it for the 1st of October. So that's the first time we can take a payment from this customer. If I was doing this earlier in the month, before the 21st, it would have been 35 payments, because we would have been able to set it up in September. So just something to bear in mind, the cut-off in the month is the 21st, is when we then have to roll over the payments to first start in the preceding month. Okay, total payment down the bottom, and other than that, those are the payments explained. If I change anything, such as removing an MOT, hit recalculate. That will then recalculate everything, and I can easily put that back, hit recalculate again. So it's very easy to update these things. I'll go into some more advanced configurations on a second run through in just a minute as well. Continuing on, we then get to the payments page. So there's a few options here. Again, I'm going to go into the more advanced options a bit later, but essentially it's breaking down the payments, it's breaking down the service schedule and the MOT, telling you when all of those things are due. If anything doesn't look right when you're talking to the customer, you can go back to the configuration step and just adjust those. Other options you've got on the right side, you've got the ability to add a dealer contribution. So this is where you as a dealer can contribute towards a plan simply by entering an amount here. And that what we'll then do is we'll deduct that from the monthly payments that we either pay to you or collect from you as each month passes. You can offer a customer contribution. If the customer wants to contribute towards the plan, they can put in what's called an advance payment. It's not a deposit because they're not putting a down payment on anything. It's an advance payment because they're basically advancing the money into the plan ahead of time. Last option is the pay in full option. Again, there is the options for the contribution here, but ultimately there's no customer contribution because they're paying in full. Essentially what they're going to do is pay one direct debit, and that will warn you if it's going to take a long amount of time. Going back to what I said before, it can take 5 weeks because of the cut-off after the 21st of the month. So that just converts that plan. If I were to hit save, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to keep it as a monthly payment just to keep it nice and simple. You can also, if you wish, view the direct debit schedule, which will, just for sanity, tell you when every payment's going to go in out and also how much that's for. So moving on, we then continue on to the, you can either put in the customer as a person or as a company. So it's entirely up to you which you preference, obviously, depending on if the customer is a business customer. We'll assume it's a retail customer, which most customers tend to be. I will put in, so most of you won't be using autofill for this, but I'm just going to put in, now it does force you to put in the email address twice. Email is mandatory. We would always encourage you to capture that from the customer because it's the best way to get the customer to get updates about their plan. Appreciate not every customer wants to do that, so it might be the case that you need to put in a pre-agreed email that's different to the customers, but ideally you really should be capturing an email address. We tend to find that from a contract perspective, that's the best way to do this because it just covers everyone and makes sure there's that audit log. So there is an address lookup to make it easier to put addresses in as well. And then we hit save, and that will take you to the bank account details step. Now I'm going to pause there because I just want to recap on a few things. I'm going to show you the quote, show you how you find a quote if you've done that and the customer's walked away and didn't actually give you their bank details in that moment. So you'll notice in the top right we've got this quote button. There is also the ability to add a note if you need to, but when I hit the quote button, what that will do is it will pop up and say, right, how do you want to get this quote to the customer? Do you want to send it via email or do you want to print it? So I could send it via email. Now, just one point to mention there is whenever we send documentation via email, we actually remove and hide certain things for GDPR reasons. One of those is the customer's address. So, but if you print it, like I show you now, that's going to generate a PDF in real time with the quote on it. I'll just take a moment to load, and there it is. And you'll notice on this one, if I zoom in just to walk you through it, we do have the customer's address on there. So this is the bit here that we would hide if you were to email it. It would just say the customer's name at the top. Obviously, it's fully branded. It has the Mazda logo on there. It will have your dealer name if you're the one quoting, or if it's been sold, quoted online or by Mazda themselves, then it will just have Mazda Motors UK. You've got the vehicle information as well. Now, down the left panel, there's a lot. It's quite heavy on the wording, but it needs to be because it explains to the customer what's been agreed to arrive at this quote and how that's been done. There's a lot of text at the bottom saying, how the monthly payments are specified, how they may change if the customer is to change their annual mileage. Obviously, they'll need to let us know that. Similar wording on the contract, but this is what is on the quote initially. Down the right panel, you have everything we've already agreed with the customers in terms of how long the plan is, when it starts, when the first service will be, the current and annual mileages, the total service price and the plan price. They sometimes differ, but very rarely so, but we have to stipulate both. Now, you'll notice we actually are very transparent into what we call both a management fee. So if it's a monthly paid plan, there'll be a monthly management fee of £1.44. That's to allow us to collect the direct debits, manage the plan on a month by month basis. If it's a fully paid plan, there'll be a one-off fee of £18, no more after that. It is less because it's a single payment and there's less to manage, so it's just a different amount. The facilitation fee, however, is always going to be £9. That is on there to help manage things like VAT accruals and things like that. It means you don't have to as a dealer, and obviously Mazda don't either, but someone has to process all the VAT statements, so that's what that is for. And then down the right hand side, you've got the payment schedule. I've already been over this, but just laying it out to the customer exactly how the payments are going to work, when the first one will be, when the last one will be, and how much each one will be as well. Then on page 2, we show to the customer exactly the 3 services that have been included, when they're due, the approximate mileage they're due at, the amount of money that they're guaranteed to be paying for them. So these are fixed. They're not going to change at all throughout the plan. So that's one of the main benefits for the customer, along with the monthly payments. In terms of the plan is inflation proof, meaning that these prices won't change essentially. Same with the MOT. So if the MOT price goes up over the next 3 years, that is still going to be £54.85 when they come in and claim it on their plan. It also says here that it's included. So if we hadn't included it, it would still show, but instead it will say you may also consider. I'll show you that when we go back through it in just a moment and confirm the plan. There's nothing else at this point. We will be adding things like direct debit mandates and terms and conditions when we actually sell the plan. But for now, this is what the quotation looks like. Okay, so as I mentioned, it could be you get to this step and the customer decides not to take the plan. So what I'll do then is we'll go to the open quotes and we'll see that quote in there. Now, you will only see the quotes for your own dealerships, or dealer group. If a different dealer group has quoted the customer, you are not going to see that. It's only your own ones. Mazda can see them and we can see them if needs be, but it could be that the customer's purchased it online. However, what you can do is actually search for a plan. In any confirmed plans, you'll be able to find by putting the registration in there. Now, this one I've just quoted on, I did this, so I'm going to go back into here. And this is the plan we've just been looking at. So I could click confirm if the customer's happy with the quotes, and that will just take me straight to the last step where I entered information, which is the customer page. As long as I'm still happy with that, I can click continue and I can put in the customer's bank details. However, let's say, for example, the customer wanted to change something. Let's say they made a mistake when they were talking to you, and you've given them a quote that's not representative of what their situation is. So you can click edit on here, and this will take you back to this step. So let's say, for argument's sake, the customer said, actually, I'm going to be doing 20,000 miles a year, not 10. They realize they're just about to change job, and that's going to mean they're going to do more miles. Then that means you can increase that on the quote. Now, you can do this later as well. I'm going to show you how that works a bit later on. Excuse me. But essentially, you can change anything on this step here. So you can change the term, the next service, when the last service was, the MOT date. They can all be changed if necessary. I'm going to continue on. And what you'll notice is changing the annual mileage has increased the amount of miles that are going to be covered in those 3 years. And it's added one extra service because in 3 years, we're going to do 60,000 miles. So we won't quite reach the 62,500 mile service, but we do definitely include the 50,000 service in this contract. We will also have the other option to include or exclude the MOT. Now I'm going to remove the MOT, as you can see here, and recalculate that. And I'll show you, just so I can show you on the contract what that looks like. Now you notice the payments have changed as well. So we still got that higher first payment to include the facilitation fee, but then it's dropping down to essentially 26 payments of 43.66, and then one final payment, because they never divide equally, of 1 penny less. So what you'll see then now is that's still going to, capturing that amount per month is going to make sure we've got every service covered throughout the plan. And it's because this last service is a bigger one, that's why it just remains large all the way through. We're going to continue on. I'm not going to change anything here. We could add an advance payment. In fact, I will do that just to be, no, I'm going to show you that in a bit actually, when I'm doing amendments, because I don't want to do too much information all at once. Continue through there, go to the direct debit details. So essentially here, we're just going to put in the information from the customer. So sort code, account code. I'm just putting fictitious information in to show you this. There is a VAT registered button. So if it's a business customer, even though you might have put private individual details in, there might be a business customer. So you can click that to yes. What that will do is it will every month send out a VAT statement to the customer so they can claim the VAT back on the payments they're making every month. And that is another reason why email is so important, because that is fully automated and it means the customer will get that every month. Otherwise, they'd have to come and ask you for it, and you'd have to print it off for them every single month. So please make sure you capture an email, which is going to go to the customer. So we validate those bank details. That makes sure that those are correct. You can enter new bank details if they're not correct. You can just view them if you need to recap them. Otherwise, we'll continue on. The last step, assuming you're not taking any advance payments, is essentially to mark who's selling the plan. So in this instance, we're going to say it's me. I can change this to a colleague, or if it's not you, you can change it to yourself. If you're using a sort of someone else's terminal, then you can update that. Also, if you're selling it on behalf of someone else, you can also do that as well. You can update any of these fields if any of those are missing. Now, obviously, the current mileage and the registration is mandatory. VIN should be filled in off the reg as well. Then we take out the service plan. Now, at this point, you get two options. You can either email the contract to the customer, and that will be our preference, our number one option, especially if you're doing this over the phone, or you're going to want to do it that way, or even via email. Alternatively, you can print it. Now, you'll notice there's a big red statement at the top saying that if you print this, it's to confirm you are giving this to the customer. So we log who's printed it, when it was printed, and that is then kept against the plan forever. So, and the reason this is important is because the law under BACS regulations is that when you create a direct debit mandate, you have to ensure the customer receives that. So, putting your own email address and sending it to yourself, that's not going to guarantee the customer's got that. So you need to make sure that one way or the other, this is going to the customer. So I'm going to hit send and confirm in this instance, send it to the customer. Now, this right now is setting up the direct debit in real time. It takes about 5 seconds or so. You can see that's done it now. Plan's confirmed. You can see the status has gone to confirmed. And I as a customer, has had an email, all Mazda branded with the contract attached. Now, you can get to that through contact history, and you'll see here there's a link on the left. It'll allow you to open this up. Customers actually had two emails. One is the direct debit mandate, which is this one. And the other one is the contract. And you'll see there's attachments. You can click through to these if you want to do that. I'll just open this up. And this is what the contract looks like. So very similar to a quote, but with more documents and a bit slightly different wording on the front page. So you can see here, we've got, as I said before, address is hidden because I emailed the contract instead of printing it. There's now a customer declaration. It's a bit more strongly worded than on the quote, but it's basically saying that the customer, is not going to do more than 20,000 miles, and doing more than that may invalidate the contract. So there's some, pretty strong words in there. It also mentioned the fact that, if it's cancelled early, there might be a shortfall of funds. It's very unlikely, but that's what, it can happen in very unique circumstances. But also that the customer may need to pay a top up if they do exceed the mileage. The right side panel is the same as before. And scrolling down, second page, it says the services that are included. So these first four. And it does say here you may also consider. That's because I removed the MOT from the quote and from the contract. It does say how much that is to add back in and how much per month that would be as well. Moving down, the third page would be the direct debit mandate. So that's included in the contract, but also sent separately just for transparency. And then the final 3 pages would be the terms and conditions. So if you're bored one day and you want to fill a coffee break, by all means print this off and have a read. But essentially, it's mostly for the customer to explain to them exactly what is included, how the plan works, in terms of being able to claim. Okay, so that's selling a plan. Now we're going to go through a few more scenarios in terms of just other things you can do. So I've gone back into open quotes, and we can see the plan I've just sold here. Now, if you need to find a plan that someone else has sold, all you need to do is type in the registration, hit search, and it doesn't matter who sold it, you'll find it. It will come up in this list, and you can see that there. So we go into that plan, When you go in, you'll see the construct of the plan, so what's included. As I said before, the new services, there's no MOT included here. So let's say the customer actually wants to add the MOT in, or they want to contribute towards the plan in terms of a top up or whatever it might be. So you can actually amend the plan. So on a quote, it's edit. On a plan, it's amend. You don't need to contact us or Mazda or anyone to do this. You can do this by yourselves with the customer's agreement. And it's important you do. Obviously, the customer is aware you're doing this. So click amend. Let's say in this instance, the customer's said, my situation's changed again. And now I'm doing 25,000 a year, so we're going to change it to that. It will then recalculate all the services on the plan, and it will let me add in an MOT if I wish to as well. So you can see now we've got 2 additional services. So in total, 6 services on this 3-year plan because of the much higher mileage of 25,000 per year, because we're going to hit that 75,000 mark in 3 years, which is why we've got 6. I'm going to add in the MOT, recalculate it. Now the payments are going to be quite high now, so in the 60 to 70 pound bracket. Customers do take plans and pay that much, but I've seen much higher plans than that as well over time. So never be afraid to talk to the customer about how much it is per month, because actually otherwise the alternative is they're going to be paying for these services as they come in. I've noticed there's a very high service there, so it's probably worth mentioning at this point. We have identified that, I think it's on the Sky Active X engine, the spark plugs are required at a certain interval. Now, this may not be that particular vehicle, but I just wanted to use this to remind me to talk about it. We've identified that might be the case on certain vehicles where it pushes the service cost through the roof. So we're actually we're working on splitting that out. We're hopefully going to have that ready this week for launch. That's the plan. And essentially what it will do is it will put that through as an optional service, but included if we know the car is going to do 40,000 miles or more in that time frame. It will always be available on that engine variant. If the customer car is not going to cover that mileage, or if it's an older vehicle and we don't know the history, we don't know when the plugs were last done, you'll always be able to include them, but it'll be an optional service. So it'll only be auto included where we know we need to also include it. So just wanted to flag that because it might come up as a question in the FAQ or Q&A later. And that just that price of that service there, and it just reminded me on that one. So I'm going to continue on. Now, if you remember earlier, there was the ability, as mentioned, where customers can pay towards the plan through a single payment. So when the plan is active, that's called a top-up payment. When you're doing a quote, it's called an advance payment. So, but it's the same thing essentially. So the customer's essentially putting money towards the plan. So let's say £300, for example, you want to top the plan up by. So you just type in the amount you need. You can always work it out from the top here as to how much available funds there are, and you'll know how much you need to claim on today's service if you need to do it then. Clicking continue will walk you through the rest of the confirmation. You don't need to put bank details or personal information, and again, you're literally just updating the payment. Now, in bright red, what it's saying here is you've indicated a top-up payment is due for the service plan. It's your responsibility to ensure the payment's been processed. So you're going to tick the box, and you're going to tell us how you've taken that payment. This is more so for your own internal reference, to be honest, because your accounts team will need to know this. But let's say it's a card payment. What that means is you need to take a card payment from the customer via your card terminal, or send them a payment link, however you want to do that. But you could also, for argument's sake, take it by cash, check, a balance transfer, or any other type of payment if you have open banking or whatever. What's going to happen then is you don't need to create an invoice for this payment because you're not invoicing anyone, you're not selling a service for anyone. All you're doing is taking payments on behalf of Mazda Motors UK, and we're then going to collect that money on behalf of Mazda in the next payment run, and we'll provide your accounts team with all the relevant documentation they need to be able to reconcile the 2 payments off against each other. Like I say, it's not a transaction, it's just a payment, so no invoice required. So we hit confirm amendment. Again, we're creating a new contract, so you need to send or print and give to the customer the amended contract. I'm going to do that email again just for ease. It should always be the default option. And then it's going to create a new direct debit, create a new contract, and essentially date the plan. And you see now we've got 6 services, we've got the MOT included, new monthly payments, new contract gone to the customer. You'll see it in the contact history. There you go. It's all gone out. So that's amending a contract and topping up a contract as well. Okay, there's two more. There's a few more scenarios I'm going to go through before we get to the FAQ. So we've got cancelling a plan. So I'm going to go back into this one. I'm going to look to cancel this plan. So very easy to do. Anyone can do this. You're going to click cancel. Just going to ask you to confirm. Choose a reason. So you'll notice most of these have a cancellation fee. In fact, all of these have a cancellation fee. Now, the cancellation fee is £30, including VAT, which the customer will pay after day 75. Again, this is in the FAQ, so you don't need to commit all this to memory now. But essentially, once 75 days has passed, there's a cancellation fee the customer needs to pay. Most of these will auto refund to the customer as well. So if I choose bank account closed, that's going to generate an auto refund of any remaining balance minus cancellation fee, minus management fee, minus various other things such as claim services, etc. The one that definitely won't auto refund is if the customer's passed. We can't do that to that type of bank account because they generally get closed down or locked, and there's no possible way for us to return that money. So that has to be claimed by the executor of the estate. Otherwise, most of these options will auto refund to the customer. You can also notify your accounts to let them know about it if you want to. And finally, would you like to notify the customer? Well, in most instances, you will. It might be in some instances you don't want to send a communication, such as if the customer's passed away, you may, maybe from a sensitivity perspective, you may not want to do that. So just please be mindful of these things. Talk to the customer who's asking you to do this, and just ask if they want that to be sent. But otherwise, you hit cancel plan. That'll cancel it off. It may go into pending cancellation if there's a payment currently processing. So that will obviously be around the first of the month to roughly the 5th or the 6th. It takes a few days for Bax to give us all the reports back. So we might go into pending cancellation, meaning we can't start the refund there and then. But otherwise, customer will get the refund within the coming weeks. It's all in the terms and conditions laid out there. Now, if you cancel a plan in error, or if a customer cancels a plan in error, you can actually reinstate the cancelled plan. And there's a couple of options here. So you find the plan you want to reinstate, which will be a cancelled status. You'll see this button on the right called reinstate plan. And the options you'll have is either to just produce a cancellation statement if you want to give that to the customer. They should have had that emailed anyway, but obviously, as we said before, if you have not put an email in, then you'll need to print it. You've got a temporary reinstatement. That will allow you to reinstate it for 1 day. And that will then allow you to essentially claim a service. If you've cancelled this before you claim the service, you need to undo that just temporarily. Alternatively, you can validate and reinstate. So validate means put new bank details in, essentially. So this will ask you for new bank details, and that will just allow you to then reinstate the plan, get the payments going again. If the plan was cancelled because the customer had 2 missed payments, so 1 missed payment won't cancel a plan, 2 consecutive missed payments on 2 consecutive months will cancel the plan automatically. If the customer then rings you up and says, "Oh, I didn't realise my plan was cancelled, can I reinstate it?" Well, this is how you do it. Just put in their bank details again, and that will reinstate the plan, get those payments going again. We'll do a catch up. Obviously, we might have missed a couple of payments, so we'll need to do 3 payments, for example, on the catch up. But that will get it going again. You don't need to sell a new plan in that instance. Okay, a couple more scenarios before then we'll go into the Q&A. So scenario number 1 is to transfer a plan. So I've got a couple ready here. So they have to be a confirmed status to transfer. I'm going to use this one here, which has some funds in it as well. So we go into that. And this has a service due. So this might be, always check that you didn't need to invoice that service off. But if it's not been done and the customer's traded the car in, for example, for a new vehicle, and they're not having this service done, then you can simply transfer the remaining funds. Now, this customer has, in this instance, £250 unclaimed on this plan. So with this time, when I click on, you'll notice the available to transfer button is lit up green. So that means we can then click into the 3 dots, and as well as cancel plan, you'll in this instance have the option to transfer the plan. So we're going to click into that. Here's the £250 we want to transfer. You click that, hit transfer, and it takes you into a new quote. So in this instance, all you would then do is put in the reg of the vehicle they want to create a plan on. This is the one I did before, but since I've cancelled the plan on that, I can do it again. Happy with all that. So what you'll do is you'll have the 3 services, the MOT, and there's the transfer. So what it's done is it's basically brought the money from the old plan into here, reduced the monthly payment down, and you see it's going to be £20 a month, so it's cheaper than what we did earlier. What you'll notice as well is it links those two together. So this is the one we're transferring. So it's saying this plan is pending a transfer to DK25 GVN, and then the one I've just done there, this is pending a transfer from Y13 TAN. So those two are linked together, helps you find them and see what's going on. So transfer is as simple as that. Just go through, continue all the way through that quote on the new one, and then by doing that, it will then close down the previous plan, transfer the money, set up the new plan. All of that's automatic. You do not need to contact us to transfer a plan. You can do it all yourself every time. Okay, last but not least, we're going to go through the invoicing process. So in this instance, again, like I said, a lot of the time it's going to be one you've sold, but some of the time it might be one that was bought online or a different dealer group, and you're going to need to search for the plan. You're almost always going to need to search for it anyway, because this list will be hundreds long over in a very short space of time. So I've searched for the plan. That's the one there. It's confirmed. You'll see the next service is due now. Normally that progress indicator would be further on, but because it's still demonstration purposes, it's still at 0%. But that would normally be further along that bar. We go into the plan. I can see this customer has made a single payment at the outset of £722.59. So that's what they've got in their plan. That more than covers the servicing that we've got here, as you can see. And this one is the one that's due. So I'm going to click into invoicing. Now, if you're working in a dealer group and you've got multi-location access, you may see a pop-up saying which dealer are you invoicing this for. That would typically be service managers or people who cover more than one site, but most of you will just come straight to this page. So let me just break down this page for you. So this is the service that's required, the date it was expected, the current mileage that it was expected at. Doesn't matter if that's not accurate, it's just when we were expecting it based on the plan. The customer price is the price the customer paid for that service. It's not what you're claiming, so just please bear that in mind. So in this instance, it is telling us the dealer reimbursement amount, excluding VAT and including VAT. However, very unlikely that will ever be the same as what the customer's paid. It will either be higher or lower, depending on where you are in the country and your own reimbursement rates, which I'll explain in just a minute when we get to the FAQ. So to invoice it, you're just going to tick the box. It will tell you, again, how much the customer's paid towards this. It will tell you the fund that's going to be remaining after this has been invoiced. These two are just for information. What you're looking for is the dealer reimbursement amount. So this is how much you can claim. It tells you both before VAT and including VAT. But the most important piece of information on this page is that this should be charged on an invoice to Mazda Motors UK, including VAT. So why is it to Mazda Motors UK, not E-Dynamics? Well, the contract is between the customer and Mazda. It's not between customer and E-Dynamics. You will see us named on the terms and conditions as the plan provider, but we're not the ones that the customer is contracting with. So if you think about it, what the customer is doing is they're taking out a plan with Mazda, and in that agreement, Mazda is saying you can use our entire network of dealers to have your car serviced. We're going to make sure your money's safe in what's called a client trust account. So the money is held in a completely separate account, completely ring-fenced. So it's not paid to the dealer, it's not paid to Mazda or to E-Dynamics. It's in what's called a client account, and that's where we're going to keep the money throughout the duration. We're going to process the VAT on that, obviously, but it just means that you are charging this out on an external invoice. So you're going to have to create a new account code in your DMS that is a VAT-able account, and it should be addressed to Mazda Motors UK. But you do not need to send an invoice anywhere. You do not need to print it off. You don't need to post it to anyone or email it to anyone. So please don't do that. Just create the invoice. And then all you need to do actually to get paid is click invoice, choose the dates that you've serviced the vehicle. So in this case, most of the time it would be today, but if you've not claimed it and you need to put the invoice date of the date of the invoice, you're going to put in the mileage that the car was serviced at. You're going to put in the DMS job number and the DMS invoice number. So that's what would be on the invoice you would normally print out. And then you're going to click invoice. And doing so will then mean you get paid. So that'll go into the complete tab. You'll see when it was invoiced, how much you invoiced it for. Please make sure your DMS invoice matches what it says here. Don't do a different amount based on menu pricing or anything else, because we're not going to pay you anything other than what it says here, because what the agreed amount was on the plan is. You can see that in the summary as well, and you can see that is always going to be there. Okay, so hopefully that makes total sense for everyone. What we're going to do now is flick back to the slide deck and go through the FAQ, and then we'll ask if anyone has any questions at the end after that if we've not covered it in the FAQ. So there's a few slides here. Let me read them all out to you. I'll talk you through them very quickly, and then anything left not covered, please ask at the very end. So who can buy a Mazda service plan? Matt mentioned it earlier. It's basically any customer that owns a Mazda. But the important piece of information here is it's going back to 2013. So we've mapped all the menu pricing back that far. So literally any customer with a car, at this point, 12 years old, and as we go forward, even older, because it'll always be that 2013 date onwards. How will customers be able to purchase a Mazda service plan? Well, at launch, it's going to be sold through you as a dealer network, but very soon we'll be making it possible to buy online. But they'll also be able to quote online and then purchase through yourselves, or quote through yourselves and finish the purchase online. So you'll be able to switch between the two. We are going to run another webinar when that launches in a couple of months. Which departments? I already mentioned it. Can sell a service plan. I already mentioned it, as I say, the service department, sales, and contact center. Or anyone else, if you've got a dedicated service plan team, obviously anyone can do this. It's entirely up to yourselves how you do that. Just ask us to give you access. If you haven't put all those people on the form you sent in, you can always request a user to be set up by sending us a support ticket. As I showed you earlier how to do that, I will add an email address at the end on how to do that as well. You can also get your dealership administrators to do that. For payments, I mentioned earlier, it's a hard date of the 1st of the month as to when we collect payments. We do that to simplify the accounts processes, both for Mazda themselves, ourselves, but also your own dealer accounts. Doing it once a month is far easier than doing it throughout the month, trust me. Who will hold the customer's money? So I mentioned before, it's in a client trust account. It's managed by ourselves, but we do not hold the money in our own account. It's in a separate account, completely ring-fenced off. Is there a cancellation charge? Again, just to reiterate that, yes, there is. After 75 days of the plan being confirmed, a £30 cancellation charge is then applicable. That is obviously not refundable under any circumstances. When it comes to invoicing, where can the customer have their Mazda serviced? As I mentioned earlier, any Mazda dealer in the network the customer should be able to take their vehicle to. The expectation is that everyone participates in the program to make sure that no customer is disappointed when they go to have their car serviced. What should the invoice contain? I already mentioned it but just to reiterate, invoice should be made out to Mazda Motors UK on your DMS, including VAT, but you do not need to send it anywhere. How are the prices calculated? So the next couple of pages are probably going to be the most interesting for everyone. So the labour rate is for selling the plan is a calculated weighted UK national average. So we've taken everyone's labour rates, weighted them based on size of retailer, and come up with a national price for labour. You don't necessarily need to know how what that actually is, because actually that's just for the customer. What's more important for you is what you're going to get paid. So it will be your individual recovery rate. Retail recovery rate, that's probably most important to mention. So you will all know what that is through composite. It's going to be reviewed annually, so the next annual review will be at the turn of 2026, and then each year after that it will be updated for new plans sold after that date. In terms of other rates, so parts are always at RRP at the point the plan was sold, so they're fixed for the remainder of the plan, don't forget, but we update it regularly. Oil will be at £15 a litre, brake fluid at 12, transmission oil at 9, consumables, which we added in as an extra on top of the menu at £5. Those will be reviewed periodically. I can't see when they might change, but typically anytime they do change, again, they'll be reflected in new quotes and new plan sales after that. Last but not least, dealer incentive. So the program launch communication did include information on this, but just to elaborate and reiterate on how that works. So from tomorrow, when the plans go live, through phase 1 up to the 30th of November 2025, there will be a £20 commission paid to the dealer, including VAT, for each service plan that is qualifying. Now, a qualifying plan is one where you as a dealer haven't contributed either in part or in full. So it must be fully customer paid, monthly or fully paid in advance to be qualifying. We pay it to the dealer. The expectation is, we would like to reward the people that are selling these plans, so that's then up to the dealer to distribute that. We will provide reporting on who sold what plans, if that's what you choose to do. And then last but not least, support. I already mentioned how to raise a ticket through the system. The website is uk.edynamics.com. It will be on your welcome email, or if you're an existing user, you'll already know that. It's not changed at all. Dealer setup. So you should all have, most of you have already returned your forms. If not, please get them back to client-services@edynamics.com. If you have any queries about that setup process, please email the team. They'll be able to help you. And then post-launch, post-go live, any support queries. If you do see a warning or an error message at any point through your creating a plan, it does happen occasionally. Maybe sometimes when new models come out, we're not aware of that particular configuration. We might show you a message. We actually auto-generate a support ticket and we'll be in touch immediately after. But if you just have a query otherwise on how something should work that's not in the guides, or you just need some help, email support@edynamics.com if you need to. I would always recommend raising a ticket through Exto though, because that will get you faster response, because it asks you the right questions and directs your ticket straight to the right team. Otherwise, you might not include what we need to know, and we have to ask follow-up questions just to get your ticket raised. So yeah, it's better to do it through Exto where at all possible. Okay, so I'm going to leave that on screen, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up the back office of Teams just to see if there's any questions coming through. Still quite a lot of people on the webinar. Just to make a point as well, while I'm waiting for questions to come in, we have recorded all three of these. It's likely this is the one we'll share, but we'll review that just to be safe. But essentially, we're going to put this up on Mazda Portal, the recording of this. We're going to share the slides, which I've shown you as well. You've got the guides within Exto, so hopefully you've got plenty of resource there to reflect back on everything we've just been through. We'll be, as Matt said earlier, we're going to be launching some new functionality next month. So the maintenance plans, the maintenance part of the plans will be going live. We'll likely do a single webinar for that, and people could just join that if they want to see how that works. But we'll obviously publicize guides and how that's going to work separately as well. And then again, in a couple of more months, we'll be releasing more and more functionality, especially the online journey for customers through national website and dealer websites alike. You can have it on your own microsites, and we'll be doing another webinar for that. And then following on any new functionalities, any significant changes, we'll do more webinars as time moves on. Right, so no Q&A questions just yet. Let me just refresh. No, nothing. Okay, so we'll hang around for a few more minutes. We'll stay as long as we need to in case there are any questions. Hopefully we covered off the things you would have asked, because we've already done 2 of these and gathered up a lot of questions along the way. And Matt, from your perspective, I don't think I've missed anything there. So please chip in if you feel I have.
That was great, Steve. Yeah, really comprehensive. As you say, I think we covered off any of the sort of Q&A questions that we got on the first 2. So that's good.
That's brilliant. Well, so far there's no questions. So that means I must have done a reasonably good job at preempting what might have been asked. So I'm going to give it another minute. I can see some people dropping off. So there's one question just coming. Let me get that. So if the dealership is paying for the service plan, do we add the cost as the entire dealer contribution? It depends, to be honest. But yes, essentially, if you're paying for the entire plan, then you want to fully contribute. So you just add the total amount. If you're partially contributing, you just put in the amount you want to contribute, basically. But you essentially enter in to the box either the full amount or whatever. So you just click fully paid, and then you type in the box what you want to put in there. Thanks for that question, Darren. I think that is in the guides as well, so that'll help you if you need to know that. There's a couple more questions coming in. So best way to request login details. So you will have been asked to fill out forms, essentially to get yourselves up and running as a dealer. If you've sent those back already, just whoever sent those in, just send in an extra email to client services and ask them to get you a login set up. If you're already set up as a dealer and you're using Exto for other reasons, then you can either ask support, so email support, and they'll add your access, or you can ask your own dealership administrator. You should have one, should know who they are, usually someone in IT, who can just upgrade your access from tomorrow once it all goes live. A few different ways you can do that, but if you're really struggling, just email support and we'll get you set up. Is the ultimate answer on that. Right, well, it's bang on 11 o'clock. That was a full hour, so thank you for joining. And like I say, hope to see you on the next one next month once we've gone live. And good luck to everyone selling some service plans. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.